Zack and Timers, hello! Today is a very special day because we are interviewing voice actor Brian Hull, who voices not one, not two, but three characters on Zack and Time. We are so honored and proud to have him on our cast. He is just incredible. I'm Holly Payne. I'm the PR manager for Zack and Time, and I'm excited to have Brian on. So let's get him on. Hi, Brian. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm great. How has everything been?
Just, same old, same old.
Well, it's so great to meet you. You and I actually have not talked in person.
No, but we've had
Or
quite
yeah,
email.
yeah, just by email. So it's so great to talk to you. First of all, you have voiced so many characters on Zack and Time. So why don't you tell everyone, for those who may or may not know, who it is that you voice on the show?
Yes, well, I do three different characters. I do Agent Thompson. He's a lot of fun to do. And then we get Pierce, who is the henchman to the main villain of the not the movie, the show. And then I'm also the main villain, James Hale.
Oh yes. That's super exciting. It's do you have a favorite character of those to
Out
play?
of I really love doing Pierce,
Ah,
the main henchman. I love all three characters, but there's something about him. I feel like I'm doing evil Kronk. Love it.
that's a really vivid description. I can totally picture that. Um,
Yeah, because he's got that deep voice and he's terrifying. And unlike Kronk, who's, he's a dimwit but nice, I'm a dimwit but mean.
oh wow, that's great. What's obviously when you're voicing more than one character in a show, there's scenes where you're interacting with yourself. Is
Hmm.
it like is it any different having to sort of have acting chemistry with yourself? How do you manifest that if you're not playing off of someone else?
Well, weirdly, that actually makes it easier for me.
Mm.
Just because learning how to manipulate my voice and everything, I was just straight up repeating movies verbatim, like as I heard them. So I'd be doing every character in the movie, having full on conversations with myself. So I think a recording session, I'm like, I can just jump back and forth. We'll do a whole we'll act out right there. But for sound purposes, we couldn't do that. But it was nice to be able to know exactly what I would tend to do for the other character. So it's just like, oh, there's that line. I would probably say it this way, so I can respond this way. So I guess I'm already in the head of the other character,
Oh.
having to be like, I wonder what they're gonna do. I just don't know.
Yeah, so it's kind of the advantage of predictability and sort of knowing exactly how what your intentions are from both sides. Um, that's really cool. How did you come to be a part of this project?
Well, I knew a few folks who were making the show, and then they reached out if I'd be interested at all doing any of the voices. I'm sorry, that noise is my dog.
Oh.
He normally stays at home during the workday, but she wasn't feeling good this morning, so I brought her to work. And like 5 minutes after I bring her in, she's back to normal. I'm like, of course you are. I apologize if you hear her scratching or whining
Oh,
her.
oh, totally
But
love.
yeah, so I knew a few people in development on it and
Hmm.
asked if I'd be interested. I said, yeah. And then we tried a few characters. And at first, I think I was only supposed to be one. And then we ended up doing three. And I think, like,
Oh.
I know I auditioned for Pierce and Hale, but I don't think I auditioned for Thompson. I think they just said, okay, you're also going to be Thompson. I'm like, okay.
That's awesome. Sometimes it works out like that. You clearly fit the project so well. They just were like, you know what? We're just gonna have you do 3 voices.
I'm
That's the and you've done several voiceovers for film and TV, and you have a YouTube channel.
yeah.
You have 2.3 million subscribers right now.
Yeah, we
That's
hit the .3.
that's awesome. I knew you from your Google Translate videos and
Oh
your
yeah.
Let Go video. Yeah, that's where I made it from.
I'm where's my brain? Melinda. Yeah, because she does all the translate videos, and then I joined her on a couple.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you've been working on lots of upcoming stuff with Hotel Transylvania. You were in Rapunzel. Like, what's some of your favorite projects that you're also working on or have done recently?
Yeah, I was in a few things. Yeah, I loved being on Tangled the series. That
Yeah,
was that was a lot of fun. Just because I was already a big fan of the show because
yeah,
I'm on season 3, so the show had already been going for quite some time. So I was like, oh my gosh, I actually get to be a part of this thing that I love. That's so cool. And the cooler thing was, I was technically Rapunzel, just in someone else's body. So everyone heard and saw someone else. So Mandy Moore actually had to record my lines, and then I had to imitate how she said everything the way this character would. So I had her in my ear, and you hear her going like, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh," and I have to go, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh," you know. That's how she did it. It was so much fun. And
oh,
then, yeah, the most recent one, I got to do Dracula for the Hotel Transylvania short, Monster Pets.
yeah,
That was fun and also a bit of a learning curve because I don't know why, but normally in animation, as you know, you do the voice acting first, and then the animation is done to the voice acting. But I don't know what happened with production on this, but like I get hired to do the short, and I get in there, and the animation is totally done. This short is done, and I need to go do the voice for this, so I have to ADR the whole thing. And I was
oh,
like, hey, okay, I will do my best. And that was hard because they were like married to certain ways that the scratch vocal was delivered, and it was like animated that way, so I had to match it exactly, even if it's not how I would do it. So that was a bit of a learning curve, but it was so much fun, and I'm so happy how that turned out.
that's so exciting. Yeah, matching to already animated poses. I mean, you'll see people on YouTube doing like, oh, fan redubs of shows. That's kind of like having to still obviously put your own, like, I don't want to say effort, but like your own creative, like finding ways to do it yourself, but also matching kind of what they're expecting.
Yeah.
So kind of like it's a very different um, process.
Yeah, you definitely don't have as much freedom when you're doing
Yeah,
that. But at the same time, it is nice in the fact that you can see exactly what's going on.
yeah,
Unlike before, you had to imagine it all. But that was nice to see. So, like, I could at least get myself more in the headspace of like, so this is exactly what's going on. So I know exactly how I would do it, but then I can't do that. So in some ways it's easier, some ways it's harder.
oh yeah, yeah. Um, do you have any advice for aspiring voice actors? Because you started mainly on YouTube,
Hmm.
from what I can tell, and then you uh, sort of became more into the voice acting realm from there. But is that how would you recommend that people get noticed?
Within the voice acting community, it's a tough nut to crack. It's a tough nut to crack. Even with viral videos and having millions of subscribers and everything, it still took me like up until now until I'm like starting to get recognized within the realm of hiring within animation.
Mhm.
Because before it's just like, oh yeah, he does impressions and stuff, but can he actually act and create his own characters? I'm like, yes, just give me a chance. But a lot of times they don't do that. And unfortunately, the few times that YouTubers have come in as like cameos and stuff, it doesn't necessarily always go over the way executives want. So executives are always like, oh, a YouTuber, I don't like that. So, you know, you got to kind of work through some of those fears and everything. But yeah, I guess the way I would say to get noticed is if you can, or as quickly as you can, not if you can, as quickly as you can, get an agent. Your agent is going to be your best friend in this. I know a lot of industries, like, you don't need agents or managers anymore, and you can kind of just do it yourself. And voice acting ain't one of those. So it doesn't have to be a crazy agent out in LA. It doesn't have to be anybody working in the big leagues. It could be someone local. In fact, I tell everyone, start local. Do not run to LA. Don't do it. You will regret it. Unless you're already out here and your family like lives out here, don't come over here unless you've already got work set up or have like enough work under your belt that you can actually get some of this done. Because I didn't do that, and luckily I had agents who were fighting for me, and I came over with agents and all that stuff. But even with that, it's still really dadgum hard, especially paying to live out in LA. So there's lots of voice acting all over the nation. So start there, get better. And I saw some people mention in the comments, and I'm glancing at them, they were talking about making sure you have a good demo. Yes.
Yeah.
Get a good demo. Because that's how you get your agent, unless you accidentally go viral. And I don't think that's going to happen. So no offense to anybody watching. It's just, that's like winning the lottery. There's no
Yeah, you definitely have to keep showing your work to people. And I do think it's interesting what you said about the fact that YouTubers, like, somehow strangely are still, they're almost seen as YouTubers first, and then they have to sort of prove that they're something else.
Right. And in the I'm to be devil's advocate for a moment, it's like I get where the executives are coming from. Because a lot of like the big name YouTubers aren't necessarily actors, they're personalities. So they're not necessarily like acting, they're just going out there being themselves and doing their thing. I do that all the time too. But the difference between like what I'm doing and somebody like, say, Mr. Beast is doing is I'm actually showcasing on the channel as well that it's like, hey, I can manipulate my voice, I can change it, I can act, let's do this. They're not. Some of them, like Mr. Beast, is just out there being himself. So, but they have the bigger followings. So they're the ones that Hollywood went to first. It's like, oh, let's put them in here. And then do like a little cameo bit because they don't want to trust them with a big character. And then they expect that's going to bring in millions of people into the movies, but it doesn't do that because they know it's only going to be like a 2-second clip.
Right. Yeah, I do think, though, that it does seem like that's starting to change for the better.
Yeah.
Look at YouTubers like ProZD, for example. You know, he's been in some big name anime series and more every year, it seems like.
Yeah.
But definitely struggled. And as YouTube gets, you know, YouTube's been around for so many years now. Like, if you compare it to TikTok, even, like, TikTok is what YouTube used to be. And so now, you know, you see all those things about like, oh, are TikTok personalities really actors? And then like, I feel like they're going to have a similar conversation later. But, you know, people on YouTube, voice actors who, you know, you're still acting, you're still writing scripts. You have, you know, sketch comedy writers who do their own, you know, there are tons of YouTubers who play every character in a short sketch, kind of like what you're doing on Zack in Time, but in an ensemble cast. But like, it's just, I don't know. I really think, and even though you said you do a lot of impressions, it's really important to recognize the importance of acting ability, because it doesn't matter how many funny voices you can do or recognizable voices you can do. If you can't act, you can't act.
That's right. That's right. That was actually one of the things that I learned from some voiceover folks out here was they were like, you can make all the funny voices all day long, and who cares?
Yeah.
Can you act with that? Can you emote that? Can you make that character say and feel anything?
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge thing, because there's a lot of impressions that I do on the channel that I can't do that with. I'm like, I can parrot a line or two, just copy it verbatim, and then just you hear that line and it's like, oh, that line sounds just like the movie. I'm like, well, that's all I got. Then there's other ones where I can literally make them say whatever I want. Like, you put Shakespeare in front of me, I can make Winnie the Pooh read it and actually have it be believable, and just like, Toby, oh, not Toby, that is the question, whether it is nobler to have the bee create some honey for you. Oh, that would be very nice. But
Oh wow, that's spot on. Wow. Like, if I didn't know who actually, like, I would have. That's so perfect. Um, I'm trying to think of some other questions that I have for you. Um, oh, you mentioned not moving to Los Angeles as a voice actor, which I think is interesting because, I do some voice acting, but I'm primarily in the writing, producing, social media field. But I had been told to move to Los Angeles. I'm not currently in Los Angeles. I live in Washington State. But I had been told to move to Los Angeles because people want to know that you can handle the price tag of living out there, and you're not going to get hired on a show and then get sticker shock and have to leave because you can't pay your rent.
I've heard that argument as well. And so what I tell, yeah, and that is a good point.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's great to move to LA after you've already established yourself and gotten work in
Mm-hmm.
other, so that you actually have something to show for it. So yeah, so I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so move out here only after you've built up a good enough resume or
Yeah.
that to actually show that you can do this work, or else then you get the extra uphill battle of you've got to pay to live out here. Plus, nobody's going to look at you because everyone's got they've got the whole, we want someone with 10 years of experience. And, you're not going to have that if you just finish college or finish high school and just move out here saying, like, I'm going to make it. It's just don't.
Yeah. I mean, you have to start local or remotely.
Right.
Which I feel like, especially with the pandemic, more things should be remote, and especially with voice acting, some people have home studios. It's like, how often do you actually go into someone else's studio to record, or do you do most of it from home?
Most of it I actually do end up doing in person.
Mm.
But some of it does happen in the studio. In fact, I had just this week, I've had like 2 things I've had to do out of my studio. But then also, one of the jobs this week was I had to go be there in person.
Mm.
So it really just depends on who you're working with and what they want to do. And it also depends on your home setup. If you have a really, really good one and they know that, it's like, oh, well, then just do it from home.
Yeah.
Make it nice and simple. Like, I've got, let's see if I can pull it over here real quick. But it might be difficult because I have it all over in a corner. Okay. But, like, I've got a Neumann TLM 103 microphone, which is basically industry standard. The Neumann brand is like the big one that everybody wants. And the 103 is a little small than what most studios use, but professional ones will have this brand and just the bigger model. So like when studios know I have this, they're like, oh yeah, you can totally record from home as long as you've got some good sound reduction in your studio, which I've got it well enough that most studios don't mind it and that it works really well. But yeah, if all you've got is like a Blue Yeti or something, they'll probably tell you to go in somewhere.
Yeah, well, that's really cool because, certainly a lot of people can't afford to move out to Los Angeles, or they can't for another reason, and so it's nice that studios are willing to have those remote opportunities. But and the hard thing about this is, unlike some other career paths, it's so much about just who you know and when, and what happens. Like you said, you could have a viral video, or you could, work for someone locally who then doesn't have another opportunity for you, but then they get hired on a show and then they say, hey, I know this person and they can do voices and let's get them on the show. So
Yeah.
like, really, any connection you make is a good connection, and any opportunity to showcase your voice or your writing or your editing or whatever it is you do can only help. And clearly, someone like you have to love it. Like,
Yeah.
I do not get the sense at all that you don't love this. Like, like, so you seem so passionate about what you do. It seems like something you would do for fun anyway, and it's just like, that's just the best. So
Yeah. I was doing it for fun, and I never had any intention of doing this for money. So that's kind of nice. Whenever what you did just for fun as a party trick is now your bread and butter.
yeah, yeah, and I think people don't like. It's weird saying that, because some people think like, oh, it's like, it's easy to be a voice actor because you can just, but there's so much work that goes into it, and it's not just reading your lines, or you know people like to make the joke, oh, voice acting, you can just roll out of bed, you don't have to shower, you don't have to shave, you can just do a voiceover. It's being able to so deeply understand what a character is feeling requires an enormous understanding of story and character development, and not only understanding that, but then being able to replicate it and communicate that to other people. Like, it's one thing to, you could be a good writer and understand what a character's motivation is and how they would say something, but then like, they're being able to have like the musicality of being a voice actor, and just it it's really exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And yeah, and also one of the things is most people don't realize you're using a muscle, you're using your body, so you have to treat that like most athletes would treat their body. So it's like, there's a lot of things that I can't do because it would mess up my voice. There's a lot of things that I have to work on. Like, I was trained for 10 years in traditional voice lessons for classical music to learn to take care of this voice, do all that. And like, if I know I'm doing a big job, then I'm not allowed to like scream or do anything loud the day before, and I have to like be on vocal rest. I have to make sure that I'm taking care of my voice with like cough drops and teas and everything like that. And it really is a learned skill, like an athlete.
Yeah.
But instead of me having to learn how to run for miles and miles and miles, it's, well, how can I talk like 800 different characters for 4 hours at a time and not get tired or worn out or throw my voice out?
Yeah. And I'm sure it takes a lot of practice to build up that endurance.
Oh yeah.
And then, because you're voicing so many characters, and people, when they watch a show, they might know the writer or the director or the producer, but when they think about how that show has inspired them, they see that character and they hear that character's voice inspiring them until their whole life. You embody the source of inspiration for them. And this whole time that we've been talking, there's just been comment after comment saying, Brian, you inspire me, you inspired me to become a voice actor, I love this character. Like, it's crazy. And it's really important to know that when you're creating a character that people are going to remember for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, and that's always a huge honor, and it always just hits me pretty hard because then I think about all the characters that inspired me and the people who created it. Jim Cummings being one of the biggest ones, being both some of the most terrifying villains I've ever seen and the sweetest of characters at this in same guy, totally different performances. I remember being terrified of Steele and Balto and then being enamored with Pooh and Tigger. And I'm like, that's the same guy. That's
Yeah.
all the same dude's head. And to where it's that different, most people can't even put that together without like looking up IMDb. That's just a testament to character acting in general, which unfortunately isn't much of a thing anymore in live action, but in animation, it's strong and it's alive, and glad to see that it hasn't gone away.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, you know, it depends on the character and it depends on the actor, because there's some actors where they either have such a recognizable voice or things that they do with their voice, or they act with close to their regular voice for some
Yeah.
characters. And so then it's like less shocking, and so people are like immediately noticing, oh my gosh, that's that actress who's voiced 200 characters. But then it's like, you know, when you have people are actually shocked when you have such different characters that sound completely different and they're coming out of the same body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It's a magical thing. It really is.
Yeah. It really is. So we're almost out of time, but I know that we've seen some questions from the audience.
All right, lay it on me.
Does anyone have any questions before we sign off here?
Do any of you have any questions for us?
I know that has nothing to do with this, but it's just the first voice that popped in my head.
Kayla Rickart says hi from Ohio. I actually grew up in Ohio.
What? That's my favorite place to go perform. Hopefully, I should be able to do that as long as COVID stays, keep going down.
Oh yeah. Long Blonde Sam says, what's your favorite Disney voice?
My favorite Disney voice is probably Winnie the Pooh Bear. So, just he's so sweet to do the voice for. Just so much fun.
We also have another question. Was it hard and confusing setting up for voiceover equipment for you when you first started out?
Finding an agent, no. That was actually pretty easy, but once again, my circumstances were very different because I didn't even try to go into voice acting until I went viral. Mm-hmm. I never thought I was good enough, so I just never tried.
Oh yeah.
That was a whole different story. And then at that point, I had Hollywood agents calling me. That was a totally different situation. But wait, what was the other part? What was the other part of the question? Was it hard getting equipment?
Was it hard? Was it confusing setting up voiceover equipment?
Oh yeah, it was difficult at first because there wasn't anyone around me in Texas who was doing any of this yet. I have some friends now who ended up doing that a little bit later, but by the time I went viral, none of us really had the knowledge and know-how at the time yet to know like what was the best equipment, what was all this. It was all just kind of spitballing it. So.
Someone else says, what's the worst thing about voiceover work besides damage and rejection? Or maybe those are the worst things. I don't know.
They are pretty bad. They are pretty bad. It's like hundreds and hundreds of auditions. You don't even get a no from. You don't even get the courtesy of that. It's just you just get no response. No response. So like every audition I do, I just have to just forget I did it. Yeah, that and I'm trying to think of like the really bad parts of voice acting. That's probably the worst bit. And the other one is just like having to keep up yourself with like all the different auditions and like, dealing with the classic stuff that artists deal with, just, when you don't have like a bunch of other people there telling you, putting input in and helping get the best product, you're like, this is my best bet at what you want. I don't really know. And
Oh,
then it's just paperwork and stuff is no fun. But
yeah.
that's everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, I think in terms of like getting no response, that happens to people of a lot of jobs, but I think for something like voice acting or, screen acting, if you're hired on a project, or I guess sometimes when you're auditioning, the director might get back to you and say, "That's great, but can you try it like this?"
Yeah,
But you're not guaranteed to get that in an audition.
no. And in fact, most voice acting auditions, I don't even see the director. I don't even
Yeah.
see any of that. It's just I record from my house a clip that I think works and I send it off and that's it.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, it's obviously, as any kind of actor, being able to take criticism, take direction, try different things, respond to ideas from the director is really important. So are there ways of showing that if you don't necessarily have the opportunity to do that?
Yeah, it's
Kind of a weird question, but
yeah. uh, you don't really get that opportunity, and that really stinks.
yeah.
It's
I
like I
guess
want.
having something like a lot of content that people can look back on, like a YouTube channel, um, just to show that you have a diverse range of voices and deliveries, it sort of improves your credibility of being able to um, change lines, and you're not just like a one trick pony.
Yeah, that does help. And yeah, obviously, the more cred you have in other works and everything, the more likely you are to get in there, and let them know that. But yeah, and you just have to find someone who's willing to take a chance on you. You gotta.
Yeah.
I've had a few casting directors who like reached out to my agent and said, "Okay, we've seen him on YouTube. We know he can do at least one of these characters for the movie. So here's like 8 of them, and then we'll
Mhm.
pick one from there." So that's really nice to see. But it's kind of one of those things I always want to send like a little addendum in every audition I send. It's just like, and if you don't like this, we can talk. We can change it. I'm not married to this. Let's let's talk. Do you want
Yeah.
different?
Yeah. That's really good advice. I think we have time for one more question, and I think I found the perfect question. Someone asks, "Hello, Brian. How would you summarize Zack in Time, or your experience on Zack in Time, or whatever you can tell us without revealing the entire plot of the show?"
I obviously won't spoil anything.
Right, I know.
I mean, well, to be quite frank, I really only know what happens in like the first episode, so I don't know how much I actually can spoil. Um, but when I first saw the script and I first saw the characters and I was kind of reading through it, I initially thought of the uh, Guillermo del Toro show on Netflix, Troll Hunters.
Yes, that's one of my favorite shows. I saw
Yeah.
that you tweeted about it a while ago, and I was like, "Yes, another Tales of Arcadia fan." So yeah,
Oh, I love it. So like when I first saw it, I'm like, oh, that's gonna be a lot of fun to do. And there's definitely like some inspiration from like Danny Phantom and a few other shows like that. So I'm kind of like, so this is like Troll Hunters meets Danny Phantom. Let's talk.
that's I'm the exact same way. Any project that feels like that to me is just it's definitely something I want to be a part of. Um, just and I think that's a testament mainly to story and characters, which comes through in acting too. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. It has been fantastic having you on our Instagram live stream.
Well, thank you, thank you.
We're so thrilled to have you on the cast. We can't wait to share more of Zack and Time as it unfolds. Um, and hopefully we can continue. Maybe we can share this video and cross promote and get the word out about the show.
Yeah, there we go. Especially because I get to be the villain in this one. I don't ever get to be the villain often, so
Ooh,
I
that's
love I
that's
love
cool.
Devious.
Well, Brian, I hope you have a great rest of your day and your week.
All right.
Well, and we will talk to you later.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Bye.
Bye.